Hello Year 10, it's Miss Bailey here. Today we're going to be looking at reactions between metals and acids. There is a worksheet attached on Padlet for you to be filling in during this video, and you should have already completed the starter set by your class teacher using a Microsoft Forms quiz. So if you haven't already done that, please pause the video and complete the starter activity, and then return to this video. So we can use this animation to have a look at how different metals react with acids. We should already have a rough idea that the different metals are going to react differently due to their different reactivity, as we've looked at metal reactivity in our previous topic. So firstly, reacting sodium with the acid, we would see that it would burst into flames in a very strong reaction. Whereas with magnesium, the metal reacts quickly with the acid and produces lots of bubbles. With iron, the metal reacts slowly and produces a few bubbles. With lead, the metal reacts very slowly and produces very few bubbles. With copper, we don't see any bubbles and so no observable sign of a reaction with the acid. And this matches our reactivity series that we've seen previously, where sodium is our most reactive of those towards the top of the reactivity series, and copper the least reactive of those towards the bottom of the reactivity series. So with our metal and acid reactions, we are using bubbles as an indicator as to how reactive our metals have been. We can use a different word to bubbles though in science when we're describing the bubbles produced in a reaction, and that word is effervescence. So what we are looking at here in our 4 test tubes, we would say that with magnesium has the most effervescence because it has produced the most bubbles, whereas copper has shown no effervescence. With zinc and iron, there is some effervescence. So if you can now pause the video and complete the 2 questions that are on your worksheet. What I'd now like you to do is have a look at this video. I've attached the link in the Padlet for easy access. So what you'll be looking at is how we can test the hydrogen gas that is being produced in this reaction. So pause the video whilst you watch that and then return here. So in these metal and acid reactions, we've seen that we're producing a gas. So when magnesium reacts with hydrochloric acid to produce a gas, can you name the gas that's produced? What test we would use to tell if that gas is present? And what you think the reason for this result is. The other product of the reaction is a salt. So using what we've just discussed, can you complete the general word equation for the reaction of a metal with an acid? Pause the video whilst you have a go at this on your worksheet. So we can also consider our reaction in terms of the particles that are reacting. So here we have our acid particles being represented by H and X. So a hydrogen atom attached to a non-metal that's represented by X, and that will vary depending on what type of acid we have, but we always have those hydrogen particles present. And then the green particles, those are representing our metal atoms. And what you can see here is that we form a compound between a metal and a non-metal. And hopefully you've remembered that metals and non-metals form ionic bonds. And we're going to look more at the structure of these compounds in our next lesson. And our hydrogen, H2, is a diatomic molecule, as we have 2 atoms of hydrogen bonded together. So we're going to take a look at how we name salts. So in this example here, we've reacted hydrochloric acid with zinc and made zinc chloride and hydrogen. So what you should be starting to see, which I hope I've illustrated with the colour coding, is that the name of the salt produced comes from both the metal and the acid. So the type of acid determines the ending of the salt, and the metal determines the beginning of that salt. So another example here, sodium chloride. So again, the chloride coming from the hydrochloric acid, whereas in this case we've used sodium as a metal, and therefore we've got sodium chloride that's produced. Could you pause the video and annotate your worksheet with this? So we've talked about hydrochloric acid forming chloride salts, but sulfuric acid and nitric acid are going to form different types of salts. So sulfuric acid forms sulfates, whereas nitric acid forms nitrate salts. So can you please pause the video whilst you make a note of that on your worksheet? This example here is showing the reaction between magnesium hydrochloric acid. So this was the reaction that you answered a few questions about a couple of slides back. So can you pause the video and have a think about what the name of the salt here is going to be? So you should have got magnesium chloride. So magnesium being the metal and the chloride coming from the hydrochloric part of the acid. So what you have now on your worksheet is lots of practice examples naming salts. And at the bottom of the sheet, you'll see that we have the naming rules. So hydrochloric, the salt ends with chloride, sulfuric, the salt ends with sulfate, and nitric, the salt ends with nitrate. So can you have a go at filling in the gaps? Sometimes you'll be asked for the salt ending, sometimes you'll be asked for the gas that gets produced, and sometimes you'll be asked what metal is needed to react with the acid, and sometimes you'll be asked what the acid needed to produce the salt is. So have a go at those. If you get stuck with any, do get in touch with your class teacher who will be able to help you with these. Thank you all for watching and see you next time.